Blackbird singing in the dead of night is a powerful, powerful image of loneliness, an image of work, of struggle, and pain in equal parts. While powerful, coming from the Beatles' sort of detached sympathy for those struggling in a world that rejected them, rejected us, take those broken wings and learn to fly takes on a different meaning when Black women are harmonizing. Ill equipped, both physically with broken wings and contextually with the darkness of the night. The Blackbird is seizing the moment. A freedom deserved but unprepared for is all that is had. Beyonce, as the conduit for the exact same words sang by the Beatles, elucidates with such poignancy both the beauty and struggles of Black artistry. Okay, grab your coffee, water, tea, whatever you're drinking, go and get that, and really think about someone who likes Beyonce the artist and will like this video. I have a ton of notes in front of me that I will be referencing as we go through and think about whether or not the other person will like this. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the Cowboy Carter tour. The claim in this video is easy. The media wanted us, all of us, the Beehive, to believe at the beginning of 2025 that Beyonce's tour was not selling. Pointing specifically to Ticketmaster and StubHub, not as evidence of just low ticket sales, but rather some meaning that they concocted and pushed that there was a lack of interest in Beyonce and her new tour, her new era. So I was very stumped. I will ignore being loaded up in a queue for my own ticket and the complete failure on my part to get a ticket after being on a wait list for forever, where a friend of mine had to sell me one of her tickets because I just could not get one. Putting sort of my anecdote aside, the reported lack of interest in Beyonce and her music was concerning, to say the least. I know they could not be talking, and this is the reporters and everyone who engaged in this conversation. I know for a fact that they could not be talking about Beyonce that had one of the highest grossing tours in history just a couple of years ago. Something obviously is wrong with this reporting. The suggestion that there is not interest in one of the most critically acclaimed bodies of work felt more like a wish rather than reporting, if I have to be honest. And yes, get really comfortable because after going to the New Jersey show, I went to the New Jersey show and it was really, really good. And seeing a packed stadium, I am here to challenge the narrative being spun around this Cowboy Carter album by Beyonce, an album that was in no small way a reminder that country music is in fact Black music taken, distorted, and represented as white, but it is Black music. And I think that's the context for which we have to understand the review of both Beyonce's album and this tour. Let's discuss the systemic disrespect and let's use the word marginalization here, and the marginalization of Black art and Black artists in the music industry. The media framing here helps us to understand, I think, in meaningful depth, the role of Beyonce's album, both as a sort of cultural and also a political statement, giving prominence to Black voices in country music through her features and performance with these black artists. As an aside, I think it is important that you please go back and watch the Christmas Day performance. No one alive is doing it like Beyonce. She's giving, what do the kids say? She's giving what needs to be gave. From the entry on the horse, the harmonies with the other black women in country music, her voice is spectacular. All of it is giving what needs to be gave. Like, if no one has told you, let me be the first to tell you the effort to make Beyonce irrelevant is a Sisyphean task. So I would advise you to keep working. I would say stop because you just won't do it, but no, keep working. The power to do this, and I'm pausing because I have to engage with Beyonce's husband, and I really don't want to, but I'm going to. I think the power to do this is not just talent, though Beyonce has it and more to spare. Unfortunately, I think Jay-Z is necessary for access and continuous promotion in the way that we consume Beyonce. No black woman in history has demonstrated this kind of media capture or access. This kind of negotiation requires power inaccessible, I think, to most people, not just black women, but also black men, black people generally, if not all of us. This could easily be used for self-promotion. Beyonce could be making the bubblegum pop music that we all love from other artists, but she doesn't, even though it would sell. Think B-Day and many more B-Days. Beyonce could do that. So, I am happy she is using it, her platform, to disrupt narrative around black people, giving other artists access and genre blending as much as she can. This is her right. This is our right, and she's using it. Such a legacy will live on forever. Making racists mad is just a byproduct, if you will, of amazing work by a black woman. I do not have the time here to discuss the sort of pro-Americana dialogue happening and how complicated that is being a black person. I will find really good videos and maybe link them in the description box. I will try to remember to do that. The current political moment complicates the imagery even more, but we move on. And again, I will try to link some videos, some I disagree with, some I don't, in the description that discusses the pro-Americana imagery that is coming out of the Cowboy Carter era. All right, so let's get to the ticket sales and confusion. While I want to give grace to reporters, I will not. If you're a journalist, I expect you writing a article or newspaper or any reports more generally, I expect you to do your job first. When I heard that Beyonce's tickets for Cowboy Carter tour weren't selling, I was confused because I couldn't even get one. Then they became cheaper, the reports claim, as a result of not being sold. And then there were reports of empty seats, though evidence of this could not be found. One of the Radar Online reporting I'll put up says, music diva Beyonce facing fan revolt over ticket prices. I clicked in, again, confused. Confusion is like the emotion, the state of being that exists for me as I'm reading these articles. So I click and it says, exclusive, Beyonce's Cowboy Carter tour set for disaster as fans warn she has priced them out of gigs. After R&B sensation's marriage to Jay-Z was rumored to have hit the rocks over false Sean Diddy Combs joint R slur. What? Like, this is actually kind of insane. Confused is no longer a useful word to describe my feelings because we're reading a headline that feels like it was not made by a reporter and it was not published. This sounds like a hater in his basement doing his best to mimic what a reporter would be doing, not just because of how poorly written it is, it also started linking things that made absolutely no sense, like Diddy. This is the only negative article that I will include in this video, but I will include other parts of this article to go through as it represents a broader discussion being had among media outlets' attempts at discrediting Beyonce, her artistry, and whether or not she is marketable. Make no mistake, this is a hit piece. Why is there a mention of her husband or Diddy? How is this set for disaster? The entire setup is a way to create associations in your mind to bolster a narrative that include both Diddy and Jay-Z without any meaningful proof. Who told them that the people who went to see Taylor Swift, another claim they will make later in the article, were the ones going to see Beyonce and that they had ran out of money by the time Beyonce came around? This article is absolutely insane. Here's the excerpt. Fans have hit out at sky high ticket prices, and the fact that many are still watching their cash after splurging big on Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour. Again, this is a comparative analysis being done intentionally so where it does not need to be. To clarify, this video is not an analysis of a poorly written piece, thinly veiled attacks against Beyonce. That video is coming, and I will probably link it after I'm done to this video. Rather, it is to highlight the media context in which Beyonce's coverage is situated and the absolute hate, I think, for Beyonce's occupying such a prominent pop role in the industry. If you look at the heading again, it says R&B and not pop. That, I believe, was intentional. But let's also look at another section of this article for a second. It says, it's another blow for the diva after her husband Jay-Z was dragged into the Sean Diddy Combs sex scandal. The article, this came out after the case against Jay-Z was dismissed. And I'm not here to argue his guilt or innocence. I'm here to say that this came out after, and we know it came out after the case was dismissed, after the woman was caught saying it did not happen. Because later in the article, it says, and I'll put it up, her hubby Jay's accuser has now dropped the R claim against him after being caught off tape saying they never happened, and is being countersued by the rap legend, but that is not helping his wife's concert conundrum. And when you think this is about to take a positive turn, an analysis of maybe the trade war happening, a discussion on tariff, a discussion on the failure of the stock market, the price of eggs, to dig into sort of real economic factors that may prevent one from being able to afford these Cowboy Carter tickets, no, that's not what happened. The economic fact they bring up is Taylor Swift. And I quote, in the US, economic factors may be at play as many fans spent heavily on her last tour and on Taylor Swift tickets. Because the economic factor stopping Beyonce from selling tickets was Taylor Swift, based on this article, I'm sorry, I'm just not willing to take it seriously. Such cheap analysis, I believe, is a setup for a kind of stand war where Taylor Swift fans, a lot of who are racist, notoriously racist, get to engage their racial biases in a way that I think is unfair and uncalled for. This is being done for absolutely no reason. The piece just asserts, without any justification or proof, that Taylor Swift is the cause for Beyonce's inability to sell tickets, which she is selling tickets. When Taylor Swift's fans come out and start being racist and doing what they do, which is compare people, and I'm going to do a lot of comparative analysis on this channel, but it is strange to do so here. In my attempts to understand what was happening, I started doing my own research. I wanted to understand if Beyonce was in fact struggling to sell tickets, and was there something to be mindful of? Was there a halt in some ways in the kinds of enthusiasm we would expect to see people have towards Beyonce? I found the tickets were selling. There was no struggling. Sure, they were selling slower than expected, but they were selling and these concerts were being sold out. So it is absolutely insane to suggest that they weren't. A simple Google search would have provided the explanation for the issue around ticket pricing and selling on Ticketmasters that a bunch of other tours, including Taylor Swift's, had struggled previously with. Let's go to wrap up and look at what they had to say. The pre-sale for Beyonce's Cowboy Carter and the Rodeo Circuit Tour was live on Tuesday. And as to be expected, the Beehive is dealing with the usual headache, ridiculously long wait times, a victim of that here, sky-high service fees, and Ticketmaster crashing left and right. The first two and the last are things that I experienced while I could not get my ticket. At the end of the day, if you were lucky enough to grab tickets during any of the pre-sale, congrats. I was not. For those who were not, the options are not great. Either deal with the reseller market, which can sometimes get out of hand, gamble on the general sale, or hold out hope for an Act 3 tour if that ever becomes a reality. Now, again, my friend got me my ticket, so I didn't have to worry about any of this. This does not sound like a lack of interest. This sounds like a problem with Ticketmaster and how tickets are being sold and resold. And also there's an issue with dynamic pricing. I will try to include some videos on the topic more broadly in the description below. Now, let's be clear. Demand is not, nor has it ever been the problem with Beyonce. What we see is an attempt to manufacture outrage around the tour and frighten people to not want to attend the tour. The question fundamentally is why? It's hard to trust a media institution, I believe, that predetermines its outcome, then creates a narrative to make that outcome possible. The scene from The Matrix comes to mind where Neo breaks a vase, I think it was, and the question becomes, if the seer did not say, watch out for the vase, would it have been broken? A similar thing is happening here in media. The fact that in their economic analysis for why people might have the issues around gathering resources to purchase a ticket to see Beyonce, we do not get any indication about a recession is absolutely insane. No discussion about actual economic issue. Rather, we get Taylor Swift being the economic factor that prevented people from now buying a ticket for Beyonce. We know what is happening here. We get it. You don't need any real media literacy to understand that this is a comparative analysis where the author is putting Taylor Swift above Beyonce, but go off, sis. This, by the way, the writing, is not skepticism of a potential failed tour. This is an active campaign to make the tour a failure. The lens through which Beyonce is being scrutinized is one that is all too familiar to black creators, and it is particularly heavy handed because Beyonce is crossing genres, and there is a need to keep her and other black artists and content creators in their place. She needs to know her place and stay in it. When a publication is naming the economic factor preventing Beyonce from selling tickets as Taylor Swift and not an impending recession, we have a racism problem on our hands, and let's talk about it. The complete control and co-opting of country music by white artists and music execs speaks very directly to the misrepresentation of Cowboy Carter's ticket sales, not just as a sort of isolated incident, but a general statement about removing black people from country music and gatekeeping country music by reducing the value of black artists and black art. Think about when Beyonce performed with the Chicks at the Country Music Awards and the pushback that came about there. I will go a bit more in detail regarding that performance in a second. The genre has a troubled history of marginalizing black talent, which I believe is rooted in the contemporary construction of country music as a predominantly white space culturally. Urban is used as a synonym for black, which is absolutely flattening the black experience. Reports from the Black Music Action Coalition from around 2000 to 2020 was elucidating on this very specific point of exclusion where less than 1% of artists signed to major Nashville labels were in fact black. That is a slap in the face when you consider the origin of country music and the work black people put into making the genre possible. Take, for example, someone that I very recently learned about because I wasn't as into country music as I should be, but I learned about Linda Martell, like Beyonce, but much, much, much earlier than her in 1969. She performed on the heels of the civil rights movement at the Grand Ole Opry. She was the first black woman to perform there and receive racist backlash that ultimately chilled her career. She is still a pioneer in the genre, of course, but that kind of pushback didn't just disappear. That kind of racism that existed in the 1960s still exists today. Let's ignore her label being called, what was it? Plantation Records. Let's ignore that Linda Martell's label was called Plantation Records. Go Google this and engage with it for a second after you've watched this video. But let's ignore that. Her story is a look behind the curtains in country music, highlighting the barriers black artists have encountered in Nashville, where systemic gatekeeping has limited our black people's access to mainstream success in the genre. And I will also include a short video of her cousin, I think it was, or her niece. I think it was her niece, talking about her contribution to country music and what happened to her. Beyonce and the Chicks performed at the 2016 Country Music Award, which was met with a ton of hostility and pushback against black people generally, but Beyonce specifically, highlighting again that the kind of hate towards black artists in country was still very much present. From no-name artists walking out, silence from some sector of the crowd, and a ton of the vitriol online, we understood deeply why it was weird to see black artists taking center stage at the CMAs, What was Beyonce's place in country music? How was Beyonce going to engage with country music? Daddy Lessons was one song. Could she push that forward? Could she remain relevant in country? Despite the banjo originated in sort of African musical tradition being the cornerstone of country and yes, folk music, despite the contribution of black artists to country music and the existence of country music, there is still a deep discomfort with black presence in country music, in the genre. You cannot sort of make this up. This is colonization. I will specifically describe this kind of colonization as cultural appropriation, where black innovations are absorbed into whiteness without credit to black people, and then exclusion of black people from said product that was created by black. At this point, they're playing in our faces. At this point they play, which was, I think this playing in black people's faces as pushed back by racist white folks around art and country music and rejection of Beyonce from the CMAs was the catalyst. This was the catalyst for Beyonce's Grammy winning Album of the Year, Clapback. This, for me, Beyonce represents a true queen fixing her crown before stepping on the collective necks of racists. If I were a white racist at this point, I would also be mad. Beyonce keep the racists mad, and I am here for it. Since I have already been talking about the Grammys in parts, let me go on a tangent real quick. Yeah, I'm gonna go on the content. Let me pull this up. The problem we see with country music and the mistreatment of black artists is not a country specific problem. This is beyond country music. The broader music industry has perpetuated similar inequalities. The Grammy Award, seen as, okay, it is seen as the highest honor for artists all over the globe. Its history is that of underrepresenting black artists in non-genre specific categories. And so, Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Best New Artist, those are not things that generally go to black artists. And I think that's the problem. I think Beyonce's 2025 Album of the Year win with Cowboy Carter marks a significant milestone, but it stands against decades of snubs for black artists, from, let's say, Nina Simone to Chloe and Halle. Ungodly Hours should have won Album of the Year. I don't know what anyone is talking about. Also, Beyonce should have won Album of the Year. Lemonade should have won Album of the Year. B-Day should have won Album of the Year. And so Renaissance should be at the top of the list for albums that should have won Album of the Year. The Grammy, as a larger indictment on music from the country-specific discussion, is also a microcosm of society at large, reflecting the broader societal tendency to exploit black culture while devaluing black people. The hate and exclusion of black artists in country music does not just lean slightly into cultural appropriation. It dives fully into it. It also extends further to cultural erasure on a systemic level. The gatekeepers make sure black artists cannot at all benefit from their creation themselves and the creation of the ancestors. Country music's whitewashed narrative obscures its black roots. From the banjo's African origin to the influence of black people, the erasure is an affront to a kind of dignity that must be reclaimed. Beyonce's refusal to be erased Her audacity in the face of racism is not to be ignored. Black people hating on her is another story, I think, for another day that I will get into. Cowboy Carter is intentionally disruptive, directly challenging the erasure in the genre by centering black voices and history, bringing to prominence multiple black voices, black artists, and making sure that they have a seat at the table is what is being done here, regardless of how you feel about Beyonce. This is not just art, it is a political and cultural statement. I will continue to repeat that. It is a statement of defiance, a reminder that this is our house and you don't just get to kick us out of it because you came in to visit. Like, are you absolutely mad? I am with the scholars here who theorize, and I know a lot of theory, pop culture theory, can be annoying because the people who provide them generally are annoying. But I am with the theorists and the scholars here, naming the thing regardless of how obnoxious they may sound to other people. I agree that Cowboy Carter is a decolonial project, one that critiques the artificial boundaries of genre and asserts black belonging in country music. And what about it? I appreciate that. The media framing of Cowboy Carter's ticket sales as a failure is not only wrong and premature, it echoes the pattern of disrespect for black artists and create barriers for black specific artists to overcome. Not placed on others to be deemed successful, the assumption of merit is absent for black people, even when discussing an artist like Beyonce, who should not have to prove anything to anyone. Since Taylor Swift was brought up, let's make the comparison that the article and think pieces refuse to make. The double standard is evident in the scrutiny Beyonce faces compared to white artists who cross genre all the time, such as Taylor Swift, whose foray into pop and folk. Evermore is a good album, by the way, and Willow is a great song. Fight with Yourself, I actually really like that song. Were met with less skepticism. The media's selective outrage, I think, underscores a cultural bias here, where there is a devaluing of black artistry while celebrating black culture when it serves white people. In this way, Cowboy Carter is an act of resistance. Some critique Beyonce for using pro black iconography without fully engaging with its meaning. She does take a social, political, and economic hit by using it. The critique feels insincere. While real, they do little to address the importance of Beyonce positioning blackness and her willingness to draw specific pro black imagery, drawing on them and making them center stage in pop culture. That gives meaning and breathe new life into the struggle for equality, regardless of your view of her as a capitalist. Her usage is a good thing. Her usage that is of black imagery. Cowboy Carter is a great piece of work, of art, and a powerful act of resistance in this way. Her usage is good. How much more activism do you all want from this woman? And please, please, please don't answer that. A lot of you all aren't. I'm gonna look on my screen as if I'm reading for this, but I'm really not. But I'm gonna shyly say this. A lot of you all aren't political actors. You don't care to do politics or to help. Your commentaries or agitations aimed at reaffirming your bubbles and further pushing people away. I think that the purity test on everything is the death nail to good politics from the progressive leftist end. Beyonce is a feminist. And black women using art this way is intrinsically political. And therein lies your problem because you cannot divorce her art from her politics. Even if you believe her to be a capitalist, which I don't disagree with, she is still putting these ideas center stage for the discussion to be had. She does not have to do that. Bubblegum pop works for her. B-Day worked for her. She did not have to give us lemonade. The day Beyonce became black as an SNL skit was a cultural moment, a reclamation of black womanhood publicly in pop culture that tried to erase her as soon as they realized she was not just making digestible content for the mass, but she was forcing us to think in pop culture. Get over yourself. You are not that great of a commentator on YouTube by continually disrespecting one of the biggest black artists out there. I'm not saying don't critique, I'm saying have some respect. Okay, for example, when we listen to songs like American Requiem, we are face to face with the erasure of black contributions we discussed earlier, folded into these lyrics that critique the commodification of black and American identity while celebrating black resilience. I think we have to give praise to that. Cowboy Carter is not just a body of work, it is a platform for voices that have been systemically excluded to be heard, fostering a new generation of talent in a genre that has resisted their presence, intentionally so. Festivals like, I don't know, Biscuit and Bonjos, which celebrate black root music, have gained traction as spaces that challenge the kind of whitewashed narrative of country and folk music. Endorsement from people like Dolly Parton is useful, but I mean, Jolene and Beyonce's singing of Jolene is one of the worst songs for me on the album. But it also highlights, hopefully, progress and movement in, again, the right direction as defined by progress. Beyonce is forcing the industry to confront its bias, creating an avenue for black country creators. By shining a light on it, on the genre, we get to see the truth, I think, we get to see behind the curtains and we get to engage with what is happening meaningfully. The media's focus on ticket sales, which is not reported accurately, rather than these sort of cultural milestone reveals, I believe, a persistent blind spot that prioritizes sensationalism over substance. I mentioned this earlier, but I believe that Beyonce's work redefines the cultural geography of country music, which is not separate from black people. Cowboy Carter is sustained in the American South, where black people resides regardless of what the media says. Blackness in this way is not inherently urban. The reclamation of Southern identity is a radical act, I believe, because of the pain that comes with that. But there's also beauty there, even if it is not welcomed by some. As scholar Francesca Royster noted, Cowboy Carter, and I quote, reimagines the South as a site of black joy and resistance, disrupting the genre's racialized boundaries. Cowboy Carter is still ongoing and it did not fail. It is still a very good tour, selling out arenas as we speak. The reports were wrong. The Cowboy Carter tour had the highest grossing single venue engagement by a female artist ever. The tour's 5-night run at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles grossed $55.7 million, marking the highest grossing single venue engagement by a female artist in Billboard Box Score's history. How is that for some record breaking? It is also the fastest tour to reach $100 million. The tour achieved $100 million in gross revenue in just 9 shows, making it the fastest tour in history to reach this milestone. It surpassed SZA and Kendrick Lamar's growth in terms of the $100 million milestone. Beyonce now holds the record for most performances by any artist at SoFi Stadium. The tour includes record-setting run at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, with Beyonce performing the most shows by any artist during a single engagement at the venue. These achievements highlight the tour's commercial success and the cultural impact it has, with over 217,000 tickets sold during the SoFi Stadium run alone. By any measure, these are record-breaking financial performance. Beyoncé is doing remarkably well. These reports feels very gaslighty and intentionally so. How could you look at these stats and not update these websites or provide an apology? I don't know. Because you didn't care. This was not about reporting. This was about shaming and attacking a black woman providing valuable entertainment, resisting the idea that she should not genre bend and she should stay in her lane, stepping very brazenly into country music as a middle finger to all the people who doubted her and told her she should not show up and she should not sing country music. How is album of the year for you? Okay, let's jump to the conclusion. Get a life, or at least do your job properly when it comes to reporting. That's kind of where I'm at. The media discourse around failed tour regarding Cowboy Carter ticket sales is not a mere journalistic oversight. Rather, this is a reflection of systemic bias that marginalizes black art and black artistry in the music industry, and intentionally so. Framing Beyonce's tour as a failure is a lie, but a lie that is laced with intent and malice. The publications perpetuate stereotypes about black artists' commercial viability, particularly in genres like country, where they, black people, face heightened scrutiny, further aiding companies involved with music in lowballing black artists or completely excluding us altogether. Be careful of how you report as you reaffirm stereotypes about marketability of black art. And I think you all know that and do it anyway. Beyonce's work challenges the industry to confront the biases and allows us to be more critical in our challenge of systems. Our responsibility here is to make sure those who provide content do not exclude people who look like us because they are to, quote, stay in their place. Media literacy is even more important for us to be more critical of not just music, but also reporting on music. Engaging meaningfully with media narrative is important, recognizing how they, the media, can perpetuate racial inequalities. We also have to start supporting black artists if we are to ever prove our viability as marketable. Beyonce has started a movement that can bend in the direction of equity and access if we let it. It is our duty to follow through. We have to imagine a music industry that values black artists as much as it values our art. As Beyonce continues to challenge narrative and cultural biases, her legacy reminds us that true change requires confronting uncomfortable truth and celebrating the resilience of black creativity, making sure that black people are able to benefit from black art. With that, I will bid you good day. Please watch the next video that is popping somewhere around here. It has to do with pop culture, and I will see you again later. I adore you, fellow Beehive members and pop culture enthusiasts. I will see you later. Bye. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take those broken wings and learn to fly.